Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video on the Gooners and Gloves Podcast channel. In today's video, it's going to be the 57th Gooners and Gloves Podcast, and I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts heading into the Arsenal-Real Madrid game in the Champions League quarter-final. Of course, this will be over two legs, and the first leg is tomorrow at the Emirates Stadium, Arsenal versus Real Madrid. I'm super excited for this. Currently, it's the day before, and I'm honestly just so excited for this game. I know it's going to be tough. I know we're the underdogs. I know this is Real Madrid, but you know what? These are the games that we live for as football fans. I feel like every fan that isn't a fan of Real Madrid wants their team to play Real Madrid. You know, everyone wants their team to play Real Madrid. Everyone wants their team to go to the Santiago Bernabeu. So I'm excited. You know, we have to just embrace this challenge. We have to face it head on. You know, this is our last chance to get something this season, so we've got to just give it everything we've got, and I'm really up for it, and I'm super excited. You know, as I said, it's a really exciting game. I think welcoming the likes of Kylian Mbappe, Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo, Thibaut Courtois, Dani Carvajal, Luka Modric, etc. to the Emirates Stadium is going to be really special, and vice versa. I think seeing our players, seeing Mikel Arteta, everyone in the Santiago Bernabeu is just going to be very exciting. The Santiago Bernabeu is actually going to be breaking its record of attendance for the second leg, and will also be charging their highest ever ticket prices, so there's a lot of buzz around the game, and in my opinion, this is the fixture of the Champions League quarter-final. Don't get me wrong, there's other good fixtures as well, but for me, this is absolutely the fixture of the quarter-final, and in my opinion, this is an absolute blockbuster of a fixture, and I couldn't be more excited or more privileged to be able to watch this game and to be able to support Arsenal heading into it. So that's just kind of my general thoughts of like excitement, but I'm going to try and actually give you guys some of my thoughts heading into the game in terms of team news, team selection, and kind of just how I think we could potentially get the result here, how I think we could potentially do something, and ultimately speaking, how we can pull off this upset. You know, there's no denying it. We are the underdogs. You know, I'm certainly not delusional. I know we're the underdogs. I know that obviously Real Madrid are the favourites, but it certainly doesn't mean that we don't have a chance. You know, we definitely have a chance. We are a solid team. We are a big team, and I do think we definitely have a chance, even if Real Madrid have the bigger chance. So first of all, just kind of starting off with the team a bit. So I think there's a few debates that are going to have to be settled ahead of tomorrow, and I think that Mikel Arteta definitely has some difficult calls to make. I think the big one that a lot of people are debating about right now is, who do we play at centre-back? Do we play Jakub Kiwior or do we play Ben White? So obviously, absolutely devastatingly, Gabriel was injured against Fulham and he's out for the rest of the season, which means that we cannot have Gabriel for the Real Madrid games, either of them, which is really devastating. I feel like Gabriel and William Saliba would have done a really good job against the likes of Mbappe and Vinicius and Rodrigo, but unfortunately we just have to play the cards we're dealt. William Saliba is available, but unfortunately Gabriel is out for the season. So the first big debate that Mikel Arteta is going to have to settle is, who do we play at centre-back alongside William Saliba? So obviously the two options are Ben White or Jakub Kiwior. So in terms of Jakub Kiwior, obviously he's more match fit. He's had slightly more minutes. I think he's had just about more minutes this season than Ben White. Obviously Kiwior hasn't been injured at all this season, whereas Ben White has been injured quite a bit, including a one big 10-week stretch where he had a surgery. So I'd say match fitness wise, there's no doubt that Jakub Kiwior has the advantage. We saw Jakub Kiwior against Everton and Fulham. You know, he looked decent, he looked fit, and ultimately he looked like, you know, he could definitely go 90 minutes, whereas Ben White got his first start in a while against Everton, and you know, it wasn't a bad performance, but it was kind of sluggish. I'm not going to lie. It's clear that he hasn't quite gotten up to speed yet. It's clear that he's struggling with the 90 minutes, and, you know, understandably, he was taken off and Yuri Timber came on. So I think that's the first big debate that we're going to have to do here. Does Ben White or does Jakub Kiwior play? You know, Jakub Kiwior, I would say, is a bit more mistake-prone than Ben White, for sure. I would say that Jakub Kiwior definitely has more mistakes in him. He's slightly less experienced, and in general just doesn't, I would say doesn't quite have as good chemistry with Saliba as Ben White does. So I'd say while Jakub Kiwior is going to be more match fit and probably more match ready, he also, I would say, is a bit more mistake prone, and I definitely think that, you know, he could make some pretty, you know, he could definitely be prone to some blunders against, you know, Vinicius and Rodrigo and Kylian Mbappe and the pressure and everything, whereas Ben White is obviously a bit more experienced. He's less mistake prone. I'd say he's a bit more defensively solid, but of course Ben White is not quite as match fit because he hasn't had as many minutes this season. He's obviously still recovering from his surgery. He's still looking a bit sluggish, etc. So I think this is just a big debate of, do we want the one who's likelier to make mistakes, however is more match fit in Jakub Kiwior, or do we want Ben White who, you know, while he's not as match fit, he's got more experience, he's got more defensive solidity, and I think not only that, but he's also got better chemistry with William Saliba. Obviously before Gabriel came to the club, you know, Ben White and William Saliba were at centre-back. Even for the first few months of Gabriel being at the club, you know, Ben White and William Saliba were a very solid centre-back pairing. So obviously that does raise some questions. Do we want Ben White and Saliba, who to be fair do have good chemistry, even when Ben White plays at right back, him and Saliba have that good defensive chemistry. So I do think all in all that there's definitely a decision to be made here. You got Kivior, more match fit, however more prone to mistakes, and then you got Ben White, who's less match fit but is more defensively solid and has better chemistry with William Saliba than Kivior does. So I think that's the first big debate that's going to have to be settled. I'd personally say that Ben White is worth the risk. So if you're asking me, I would say that Ben White with William Saliba in centre-back is worth the risk. Even if Ben White is less match fit, I do think he's more defensively solid, and I do think he could really show out for a game like this. So I like Kivior, I do think he's great, and I wouldn't mind if he gets played, but if you're asking me, I would personally prefer Ben White to get played at centre-back alongside Saliba. He's got that better chemistry with Saliba, he's got more experience, he's less mistake-prone, and he's quite defensively solid, and ultimately the fitness will come. So in my opinion, it should be Ben White who gets played, but if it's Kivior, I'm fine with that as well, because at the end of the day, Kivior is certainly not a bad defender either. So then obviously who gets played at centre-back will then probably determine who gets played at right-back, because you'd imagine that if it's Kivior at centre-back, then it'll probably be Yuri and Timber at right-back and vice versa. To be fair, even Yuri and Timber at centre-back works, because Yuri and Timber is actually a centre-back by trade, and he does play centre-back for the Netherlands. So to be fair, even Yuri and Timber at centre-back wouldn't be the worst shout, but I do think it will likely be Ben White or Kivior. So I think, Yuri and Timber at right-back is what we'd expect to happen. I personally think it's going to be Timber. He came on against Everton, he looked decent, had a solid performance, and he seems like he's fine from his injury against Fulham. So I do think we'll see Timber at right back. So I think the two defensive lines we could see is either Timber right back, Ben White centre back, William Saliba centre back, and then Miles Lewis-Skelly left back, or alternatively Yuri and Timber right back, Ben White centre back, William Saliba centre back, and then Miles Lewis-Skelly left back. And then obviously in both of these it would be David Raya in goal. So I think that's probably the two different defensive pairings that we could see. So we'll see what happens, we'll see what Arteta goes with, but I'd personally go with Ben White. Then of course the other big debate to play is, do we play Mikel Merino or Leandro Trossard at number 9 in the false 9 position? This is the other big debate to settle, I would say. Obviously pretty much every other position is quite clear cut and dried who you would play. I'd say really it's just centre back and the false 9 that currently are under question. Obviously, Mikel Merino has been doing well recently in that false 9 position. He scored in the last couple of Premier League games that he's played in that position, Fulham and Chelsea. However, Leandro Trossard played against Everton in the false 9 and he looked really good. He scored a great goal, and in general, I thought he had a really good performance. And we know Leandro Trossard has been really good in the Champions League in the past. Even last season, I thought Leandro Trossard was fantastic in the Champions League, really clutch. So there is definitely a case to play Leandro Trossard at number 9. I would say there's definitely a case for that, and it would be understandable if Mikel Arteta goes for it. But of course, alternatively, we could do Mikel Merino again. Mikel Merino is obviously tall, he's over 6 foot, he could really get his head to some headers, and he's definitely a real heading target. And of course, on top of that, he's big, he's shown that he's got a finisher's instinct, and it would make sense. Obviously, you could probably argue that Leandro Trossard should play at number 9, just because Mikel Merino was really good. I mean, you saw against Everton, I thought he was fantastic in midfield. Obviously, midfield is where he naturally excels, and you saw how good he was against Everton, provided a lot of defensive stability, regained the ball quite nicely, and not only that, but he was a really good set-piece target as well. You saw like every single set-piece from that midfield position, he was getting up wide across the pitch. So he was getting up far across the pitch, and he was really getting his head on some of these Saka and Declan Rice deliveries, even free kicks as well, he was definitely getting on the end of. So there is definitely a case to be made that it could be Leandro Trossard at number 9, and then Mikel Merino in midfield, and then Mikel Merino could be trying to get his, and then obviously Mikel Merino could act as a set-piece target. He could give us that defensive solidity. He could have a good relationship with Rice and Odegaard, etc. So I definitely think that there is a case to be made for Trossard to be playing at number 9. Obviously, I'm not saying it's not risky, because Leandro Trossard obviously hasn't had that many minutes recently, but we know Leandro Trossard is a great finisher. We've known in the past that he definitely can be clinical. So that one is definitely up in the air. I personally am really struggling to decide who I'd rather have, Merino or Trossard, but I think in my opinion there is a real case to be made for Trossard, and I'd probably argue that Trossard just edges it, simply because I think Merino would excel more in midfield in this game. I think that defensive solidity that Mikel Merino gives us, I think that defensive quality, I think would just really help, and I think it'd be really good for Merino to be in midfield. So I wouldn't mind if either of them play, because at the end of the day they're both good finishers, but I would argue just about that Leandro Trossard should play at number 9, and then Mikel Merino should be in midfield. Trossard obviously has that good finish and he's fast, and then Mikel Merino, he's big, he's strong, he can get on the end of set pieces, and he can provide us that defensive solidity in midfield. Really, I'd say those are the only two kind of positions that are up in the air. I'd say everywhere else is quite clear. We know Odegaard will play, we know Declan Rice will play, Saka and Martinelli on the wings, of course, maybe Nwaneri off the bench to provide some depth, and then obviously every other position. So I'd say really those are the only two positions that are under question. Who do we play at centre-back and who do we play at number 9? Obviously Saka and Martinelli will play, Odegaard will play, Declan Rice will play, etc, etc. That's all pretty simple, but I just thought I'd go on and address those two dilemmas right now. So please let me know down below, who do you play at centre-back? Would you rather have Ben White or Kivior? And then who do you play at number 9? Would you rather have Merino or would you rather have Trossard? I'd really love to hear it. In summary, for me, I'd probably just about rather have Trossard at number 9 and Merino in midfield. So Trossard can have the good finishes, he's fast, and Merino, because he has great defensive solidity, gets on the under set pieces, and will just really help to kind of give some discipline to that midfield. And then I would also rather have Ben White as centre back, just because he's more experienced, he's got better chemistry with Saliba, he's got more defensive solidity, and he's also just I think he would just do better. So that's my opinion. So that's kind of the team news and what I think heading into the game in terms of the team. So obviously we'll see what Mikel Arteta goes with tomorrow. We saw that he rested a lot of players against Everton, so it's clear that Arteta is fully focusing on this Champions League game, understandably so. The league is basically over. Even with Liverpool slipping up yesterday, it just doesn't matter. They're still massively ahead. So this is really, really exciting. Obviously Real Madrid may not be in the best form, but that doesn't mean anything to me. Real Madrid in the Champions League is a different beast. So to me, the fact that they've been in poor form doesn't really mean anything to me. End of the day, Real Madrid in the Champions League is a whole different beast. So to me, it means nothing that they've been in poor form in the league. But yeah, pretty much it's just really exciting. I think it's going to be an amazing game. We really have to just embrace this challenge, embrace the hustle. This is going to be tough, but also we need to believe. I've seen a lot of negativity and doubt surrounding Arsenal, and unfortunately a lot of that seems to be coming from our own fan base as well. I'm seeing a lot of our fan base say that we're going to get destroyed, we've got no chance, and end of the day, real fans, I know, obviously I'm not saying be delusional, I'm not saying say that we're the favourites or we're going to destroy Real Madrid or anything, because no, that's delusional, and I'm not for a second saying that we should say that, but I do also think that we need to show some belief. We need to show some pride. End of the day, we are Arsenal Football Club. We have achieved a lot, and we absolutely deserve to be here. Contrary to what many people may say, we do deserve to be here. We have earned the right to play Real Madrid, and we do belong. So hopefully we can fight. We can give the best result we can, and if we don't go through, then hopefully we've given the best account of ourselves possible, and hopefully we've played the best football we can. And of course, if we do go through, that's absolutely amazing. It's a huge, huge achievement, and of course that will take us through to the semi-final, where we can then start to dream about potentially winning our first Champions League. As you can see on the screen, I've got a picture from the 2005-06 game from the Bernabeu, when of course Thierry Henry scored. We won 1-0, and of course that was the first ever win by an English team at the Bernabeu, so certainly some history here. Also back in 1999 when we won 3-1 when Ian Wright was involved, so we definitely have some history with Real Madrid, and it's just really exciting that we're going to get to play them again. And of course I just hope that we can go through, but if not, it's just going to be an amazing experience to see Vinicius Jr., Kylian Mbappe, Rodrigo, Luka Modric, Dani Carvajal, Rudiger, Thibaut Courtois, etc. at the Emirates Stadium, and of course to see the likes of Bukayo Saka, Martin Odegaard, Gabriel Martinelli. Martin Odegaard, of course, there's a bit of a story there with Martin Odegaard having previously played for Real Madrid, and so yeah, there's just a lot of exciting stuff here, and in my opinion this fixture is an absolute blockbuster, and for me this is the fixture of the quarterfinal, and in my opinion this fixture will steal the show for the quarterfinal across both legs. Hopefully we can get the win tomorrow, and hopefully we can head to the Bernabeu in a lead, because I feel like if we go there with a draw or with a loss, it's going to be really, really hard. But if we can go there with a lead, then of course it's anybody's game at that point. So hopefully we can go through, get the lead, and then potentially hold on to that lead and go through. We shall see. But a super exciting game. I cannot wait for it. Please let me know down below how you're feeling for it. This is a really exciting game. Real Madrid fans, please let me know down below how you guys are feeling for this game and how you think it's going to go as well, because for some reason these two teams just never seem to play each other. Even Arsene Wenger, he took us to the Champions League 22 years in a row, and he only got to play Real Madrid a couple of times. So it's just a game that for some reason never seems to happen. So I'm just really going to enjoy this moment, enjoy the two games. I'm super excited to be able to talk about this. I've been wanting to see Arsenal play against Real Madrid for so long. The last time they did it, I was only 2 years old. No, sorry, I wasn't even 2 years old. I was 1.5 years old. I was very young. So the fact that now we get to see them play again is going to be very exciting, and I just can't wait. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up my thoughts on the game. So that's how I feel about the teams. So all in all, it's going to be tough. We are the underdogs, but we must believe. I've got full belief in the squad, and I've got full backing. The squad has my full belief, my full backing. attacking across both legs, and hopefully we can do this. Hopefully the Emirates will be loud, hopefully the Emirates will be exciting, and we can really, really turn the Emirates into a cauldron and show Real Madrid that we're not going to go, we're not going to back down, and we are going to give this our all. So yeah, pretty much though, that wraps up my thoughts on this game. So of course I'll be releasing my reaction podcast to the game immediately after the game tomorrow and next week for the second leg. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Have a great day. Thank you so much for all the support recently on the channel. The support has been absolutely overwhelming recently, so thank you so much for all the support, and hopefully that can carry on. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great day. Please let me know down below how you feel for the Arsenal Real Madrid game, and I'll catch you guys in another podcast soon. Bye bye.